You're sitting there right now, scrolling through another screen, watching another face tell you another story. And somewhere in the back of your skull, there's this low hum of discomfort. It's the awareness that you're fundamentally alone. Not just physically, though, that might be true too. I'm talking about the existential aloneness. The kind where you look around at the people in your life and realize that not a single one of them actually understands what you're building, what you're becoming. They smile at you with that glazed-over look of polite concern. Then you absolutely know that they think you're lost. They think you've gone too far. They're waiting for you to come back to normal, to come back to them, to come back to mediocrity. And here's what nobody wants to tell you, what they can't tell you, because it would shatter the comfortable delusion that holds society together. Your solitude isn't a symptom of failure. It's a diagnosis of evolution. You are alone because you are changing into something that the herd cannot recognize, cannot categorize, cannot control. And that terrifies them. Not consciously, of course. They don't sit around plotting against your transformation. It's far more insidious than that. It's biological, it's automatic. It's the same mechanism that makes the body reject a transplanted organ. You are becoming foreign tissue in the social body, and the antibodies are swarming. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this with a clarity that got him exiled, despised, and historically slandered for 5 centuries. When he wrote The Prince, he wasn't writing a manual for cartoon villains. He was documenting the brutal operating system of power. And one of his most dangerous observations was this: the crowd loves the comfortable lie. They will choose the beautiful fiction over the ugly truth every single time. They will elect the charlatan who tells them what they want to hear over the visionary who shows them what they need to see. And if you are the one speaking uncomfortable truths, if you are the one who refuses to validate their delusions, they will expel you. Not because you're wrong, because you're right, and they can't afford for you to be right, because your rightness illuminates their wrongness, and that creates a psychological pain they are not equipped to process. Look at what happened to Machiavelli himself. He served Florence with brutal competence, and the moment the political winds shifted, he was tortured and exiled. The leaders he advised, the ones who followed his principles in private, publicly condemned him. Why? Because association with truth is dangerous when the masses demand comforting mythology. The powerful needed his wisdom, but couldn't be seen receiving it. This is the pattern. The prophet dies alone. The innovator is mocked until the innovation becomes undeniable. The strategist operates in shadow because the light would reveal how the game actually works, and the players cannot handle that revelation. So they built this entire social punishment protocol specifically designed to break people like you. Loneliness is weaponized. From the moment you're born, you're conditioned to fear isolation more than death itself. Every fairy tale, every movie, every song, every cultural narrative hammers the same message into your psychology. Belonging is survival. Exclusion is annihilation. And there's a reason for this conditioning. It's not accidental. A person who fears loneliness can be controlled through the threat of exclusion. A person who needs the group will conform to group standards. A person who requires validation will never rebel against the validators. This is social engineering masquerading as natural human connection. Your biology is screaming at you right now. There's a part of your brain, the ancient part, the part that remembers when exile from the tribe meant death by predator or starvation, and that part is in full panic mode. It's flooding your system with cortisol and anxiety every time you spend a Friday night alone working on your project, instead of pretending to enjoy another soul-draining social obligation. It's telling you that something is wrong, that you need to fix this, that you need to get back to the safety of the herd. But here's what that primitive alarm system doesn't understand. The modern landscape has changed. Isolation is no longer a death sentence. In fact, for the strategically minded, for the architect of their own destiny, isolation is the laboratory. Solitude is the workshop. Aloneness is the competitive advantage that your biology is too outdated to recognize. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, at least to yourself. Are you alone because you failed to fit in, or because you refused to? This is the diagnostic question, This is the brutal self-assessment mirror that most people will never look into because they're terrified of what they'll see. There are 3 types of alone, and only one of them leads anywhere worth going. First, there's the victim. This is the person who is isolated because they lack social skills, emotional intelligence, or basic self-awareness. They want to belong, but can't figure out how. They're alone by incompetence, and they suffer because their isolation is a prison they don't have the key to. Second, there's the hermit. This is the person who retreats from society out of fear, bitterness, or defeat. They've been hurt, rejected, disappointed, and they've decided the game isn't worth playing. They're alone by surrender, and they tell themselves stories about how they're above it all. But really, they're just hiding from the possibility of more pain. And then there's the third type, the architect. This is the person who is alone by design, by choice, by strategic necessity. The architect understands that building something significant requires resources that most people squander on maintaining social appearances. The architect has looked at the average person's life, the average person's ambitions, the average person's conversations, and made a calculated decision that those things are not worth the investment. This isn't misanthropy. This isn't bitterness. This is resource allocation. This is understanding that your attention, your energy, your time, these are finite and precious, and spending them on people who will never understand what you're building is not noble, it's not kind, it's just stupid. Machiavelli would look at your loneliness and ask that question, which one are you? Because if you're the victim or the hermit, then yes, your isolation is a problem that needs solving. You need to develop the skills or heal the wounds that keep you trapped. But if you're the architect, if you're alone because you looked at the price of belonging and decided it was too high, if you're isolated because you're building something that requires more focus than friendship allows, then your loneliness isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's not something to fix, it's something to leverage. The masses will never tell you this. They can't. Because if they admitted that solitude could be superior to belonging, their entire social structure would collapse. They need you to believe that you're broken. They need you to feel the pain of isolation so acutely that you come crawling back, willing to compromise, willing to conform, willing to shrink yourself down to a size that fits comfortably in their world. And most people do exactly that. They feel the discomfort of being alone and they interpret it as evidence that they've made a mistake, that they need to course correct back toward the center, back toward normal, back toward the herd. And that's where they die. Not physically, but in every way that matters. They die creatively. They die strategically. They die as individuals and are reborn as copies. Your brain wasn't designed for truth. It was designed for survival within a tribe of 200 primates who needed to agree on where the waterhole was and who got to mate. That's it. That's the entire evolutionary program. And now you're walking around with that same hardware, trying to build empires, trying to create art, trying to forge a path that nobody has walked before. And that ancient circuitry is screaming at you every single day that you're doing it wrong, because you're doing it alone. This is the dopamine leash, and most people never even realize they're wearing it. Every time you received approval as a child, your brain released a chemical cocktail that felt better than anything else in your limited experience. Parent smiles, dopamine hits. Teacher praises, dopamine hits. Friends laugh at your joke, dopamine hits. And your nervous system, efficient and ruthless as it is, learned a simple equation. Conformity equals chemical reward. Deviation equals chemical withdrawal. By the time you were 7 years old, you were already an addict. You just didn't know what drug you were on. You were addicted to the validation of others, and like any addiction, it required increasing doses to maintain the same effect. One friend's approval wasn't enough anymore. You needed the whole group. The whole group wasn't enough. You needed strangers. Strangers weren't enough. You needed metrics, likes, shares, comments, a quantified measurement of your acceptability delivered in real time so you could adjust your behavior accordingly. Machiavelli observed this mechanism 5 centuries before neuroscience could explain it, and he articulated it with surgical precision. He who needs love cannot command respect. Read that again. He who needs love cannot command respect. Because the moment your decision-making process includes the variable of how others will react, you have subordinated your will to theirs. You are no longer the author of your actions. You are a performer seeking applause, and performers do not change the world. They entertain it. The affirmation trap operates in 4 distinct stages, and if you're honest with yourself, you'll recognize exactly where you are in this progression. Stage 1 is social reward conditioning. This happens from birth through adolescence. Every institution you encounter, family, school, religious organizations, sports teams, they all operate on the same behavior modification protocol. Comply and receive reward, deviate and receive punishment. The reward is inclusion, attention, praise, affection. The punishment is exclusion, silence, criticism, shame. And because you are a child with no frame of reference, you assume this is simply how reality works. You don't question it, you internalize it, you become it. Stage 2 is identity fusion with external validation. This is where it gets dangerous. You stop seeing validation as something you receive and start seeing it as something you are. Your sense of self becomes inseparable from the feedback you get from others. You are smart because your teacher said so. You are funny because your friends laughed. You are attractive because someone desired you. You are successful because society recognized your achievements. Strip away the external confirmation, and you experience not just disappointment, but existential terror. Because without that validation, you don't know who you are. You have no internal reference point. You are a mirror that only works when someone else is looking at it. Stage 3 is decision-making paralysis without consensus. Now you can't move without permission. Every choice, from career moves to relationship decisions to how you spend your Tuesday afternoon, requires consultation, validation, agreement from others. You tell yourself you're being thoughtful, collaborative, open-minded. You're not. You're terrified. You're terrified of making the wrong move and losing the approval that you've come to believe is the same thing as oxygen. So you poll your friends. You seek advice. You create elaborate justifications for decisions you haven't even made yet, testing them in conversation to see how they land, measuring the facial expressions and vocal tones of others to determine whether you're allowed to want what you want. This is not strategy. This is slavery. Stage 4 is the complete erosion of internal authority. This is the end state. This is where most people live their entire lives. You have no center. You have no core. You have no sovereign self that exists independent of observation. You are a hologram projected by consensus. Change the consensus and you flicker out of existence. This is why people have midlife crises. Not because they suddenly realize they're going to die, but because they suddenly realize they never lived. They spent 50 years performing a role that other people wrote, and now they're standing in a house they don't recognize, married to someone they don't know, working a job that means nothing, and they can't even articulate what they actually want because they never developed the internal apparatus to generate authentic desire. They only know how to detect what desire is acceptable and then pantomime it convincingly enough to keep the validation flowing. Stop watching. Go to the comments and write, "I am sharpening my blade." It will keep you focused on the only thing that really matters: power. The crowd operates as a psychological weapon, and it doesn't even know it. Groupthink isn't a bug in human social systems. It's a feature. It's the mechanism by which collectives maintain coherence and eliminate threats. And you, with your different ideas and your different pace and your different destination, you are a threat. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're evidence. Evidence that their choices weren't inevitable. Evidence that the path they're on isn't the only path. Evidence that they sacrificed their individuality for belonging. And maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to. Your existence prosecutes their compromise, and they will punish you for it reflexively, instinctively, without even understanding why they feel compelled to diminish you. Belonging murders ambition because belonging requires conformity to group norms, and group norms are always calibrated to the lowest common denominator. The group moves at the speed of its slowest member. The group thinks at the level of its least intelligent member. The group dreams at the scale of its least ambitious member. This is not cynicism. This is mathematics. For a group to maintain cohesion, it must enforce boundaries. Those boundaries are defined by what the majority can accept, and the majority can accept very little. They can accept comfort, they can accept familiarity. They can accept incremental change that doesn't threaten their identity or require them to question their choices. What they cannot accept is someone in their midst who wants something more, something different, something that would require them to confront their own self-imposed limitations. So they create what I call the comfort cartel. These are the friends who keep you small. They don't do it maliciously. They do it protectively. They're protecting themselves from the discomfort of your growth. Every time you attempt to level up, they will subtly, sometimes overtly, pull you back down. They'll disguise it as concern. Are you sure you want to do that? That seems risky. What if it doesn't work out? Remember what happened last time? They'll disguise it as realism. Be practical. Be reasonable. Don't get your hopes up. They'll disguise it as love. I just don't want to see you get hurt. I'm worried about you. You're changing. But what they're actually saying is, stay here with me in mediocrity, because if you leave, I'll have to confront the fact that I chose to stay. And I don't want to feel that. So I need you to fail. I need your dreams to be unrealistic so mine can remain comfortably abandoned. Here's a statistical reality that nobody wants to say out loud. 96% of the people you encounter are non-player characters in your story. They have their own narratives, their own struggles, their own internal experiences, sure. But in the context of your mission, your vision, your specific path to excellence, they are irrelevant. They are background. They are extras. And treating them as anything more than that is a strategic error that will cost you years of your life. This doesn't mean you're cruel to them. This doesn't mean you lack empathy. It means you understand that your attention is your most valuable resource. And most people are not worth the investment. Most people will take everything you offer and give nothing in return, except the validation you're supposed to have stopped needing by now. Machiavelli practiced what he called decision-making in isolation. When he needed to make a significant choice, he would remove himself from all social input. No advisors, no friends, no family. He would sit alone with the problem and the available information, and he would decide. Not based on what others would think, not based on what was popular or safe or likely to be praised, based on what the situation required, based on what would produce the outcome he needed. This is how you rewire the brain's reward system. You practice making choices in the absence of validation, and then you live with those choices long enough to see the results. You create a feedback loop that bypasses social approval entirely. Did the decision produce the outcome I wanted? Yes or no? That's the only metric that matters. Not how people reacted, not whether they understood, not whether they approved. Did it work? That's sovereignty. The 90-day social detox protocol is simple, and most people won't do it because it's terrifying. For 90 days, you make zero decisions based on how others will react. For 90 days, you stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking input on choices you've already made. You stop posting your life for validation. You stop checking whether people approve of your direction. You move in silence, and you measure results in private. No accountability partners. No masterminds. No friends weighing in on your strategy. Just you and reality, and the feedback loop between your actions and their consequences. What you'll discover is that most of what you thought was necessary social connection was actually just addiction maintenance. You'll discover that you can function, that you can decide, that you can create without the constant drip of external affirmation. And more importantly, you'll discover who you actually are when nobody's watching. That's the internal throne. That's self-sovereignty. That's the thing they can never take from you once you've built it. Being misunderstood is not a problem to be solved. It's a competitive advantage to be leveraged. When people don't understand what you're doing, they can't interfere with it. They can't copy it. They can't regulate it. They can't compete with it. Your illegibility to the masses is a feature, not a bug. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote in codes. He spoke in metaphors. He revealed different versions of himself to different audiences, because he knew that being fully known is being fully vulnerable, and being fully vulnerable is being fully controllable. The strategic value of social invisibility cannot be overstated. When you're not on anyone's radar, you can move freely. You can experiment, you can fail without audience, you can build without interference. And then when you're ready, when the work is done, you can emerge fully formed. And they'll call it overnight success because they weren't watching the 10 years you spent alone in the dark building the thing they're now applauding. Loneliness is market differentiation. Everyone else is clustered together, thinking the same thoughts, reading the same books, attending the same events, networking in the same circles, producing the same mediocre output. And you're over here, alone, thinking different thoughts, consuming different information, building different skills, creating different solutions. Who do you think has the advantage? The one who looks like everyone else, or the one who looks like no one else? Scarcity creates value in every market, including the market of human attention and influence. You think you're ready for the advanced laws? Most of you aren't. Most of you will hear these principles and immediately run back to your group chats, your validation circles, your comfort committees. But for those few who remain, for those who have the stomach to operate at the level where real power consolidates, let's proceed. The law of necessary isolation. Listen carefully. Every elite performer throughout history operated in calculated solitude during their critical developmental phases. Not because they were antisocial, not because they couldn't make friends, but because they understood something the masses will never comprehend. Other people are cognitive pollution. Every conversation you have, every social obligation you fulfill, every group activity you participate in, it's all extracting processing power from your mental operating system. Your brain has finite computational resources. Every minute spent managing someone else's emotional needs, navigating social politics, or maintaining relationships that provide zero strategic value is a minute stolen from your actual objectives. Machiavelli understood this viscerally. The Prince wasn't written in a coffee shop surrounded by friends offering encouragement. It was written in exile, in isolation, in the brutal clarity that only solitude provides. The mathematics are simple. 80% of the people in your life provide 20% of the value. Actually, let's be more honest. 95% of the people in your life are net negative. They're energy vampires. They don't add to your capabilities, they subtract from them. They don't sharpen your thinking, they dull it. They don't elevate your standards, they normalize mediocrity. And you know this. You've known this for years, but you've been too afraid to act on it because cutting people off feels cruel, feels cold, feels Machiavellian. Good, it should, because it is, and it's also necessary. Machiavelli's inner circle principle states clearly, trust few, use many. Notice the hierarchy. Most people exist in the use category. They're transactional. They provide specific utility for specific situations. The plumber fixes your pipes. The accountant manages your taxes. The colleague provides information about office politics. These are functional relationships, not friendships. Treating them as friendships is a category error that costs you clarity. The trust few category is almost empty. Maybe 3 people, maybe 5 if you're exceptionally fortunate. These are individuals who have demonstrated through repeated behavior, not words, that their interests align with yours at a fundamental level. Not because they like you, not because of shared history, but because the incentive structures create genuine alignment. Your success benefits them, your failure harms them. That's trust. Everything else is performance. Now, the law of selective association. You don't build a social circle, you build an invisible council. These are not people you have coffee with. These are cognitive resources you access strategically. The author whose books rewire your thinking. The podcaster whose interviews expose you to elite mental models. The historical figure whose biography provides tactical frameworks. The mentor who appears 3 times a year for 90-minute sessions that recalibrate your entire trajectory. Notice what's absent from this council. Daily contact, emotional intimacy, reciprocal validation. Your invisible council doesn't even know it's your council. You're extracting value asymmetrically. You're learning from people without them teaching you. You're being influenced by individuals who have no idea you exist. This is the highest form of strategic association. Zero social obligation, maximum cognitive benefit. Every quarter, you audit your social portfolio like a venture capitalist audits investments. Who added value? Who extracted value? Who remained neutral? The value extractors get cut immediately. No explanation, no negotiation, no guilt. They're fired from your life. The neutral parties get downgraded to transactional status. Cordial, but distant. The value adders get maintained, but never worshipped. Because here's the dark truth that no one wants to say out loud. All relationships are strategic. All of them. The person who tells you otherwise is trying to extract value while pretending they're not. Love, friendship, loyalty. These are narratives we construct to make transactional exchanges feel meaningful. And that's fine. The narratives serve a purpose. But you, operating at this level, you need to see through the narratives to the mechanics underneath. Your mother loves you, but there's evolutionary biology driving that love. Your friend supports you, but there's social capital being accumulated. Your partner chooses you, but there's a cost-benefit analysis happening beneath conscious awareness. This isn't cynicism, this is clarity. Subscribe right now. Join the 1% who receive the full strategic framework. The ones who don't flinch at uncomfortable truths. The ones who understand that power requires precision, not popularity. Click subscribe or remain in the majority that consumes content but never transforms. The Law of Perceived Aloofness. Scarcity creates value in human markets exactly as it does in financial markets. When you're always available, always responsive, always present, you communicate low value. Your time is abundant. Your attention is cheap. Your presence requires no effort to obtain. The market adjusts accordingly. People treat you as disposable because you've priced yourself as disposable. Strategic unavailability reverses this dynamic. When your time is scarce, when your attention must be earned, when your presence is an event rather than an assumption, the perceived value multiplies exponentially. This isn't playing games. This is understanding games. Every interaction is a negotiation of value. Every relationship is a market, and in markets, scarcity drives price. Machiavelli was a master of calculated distance. He didn't make himself accessible to everyone who wanted an audience. He didn't explain himself to every critic. He didn't justify his positions to the crowd. This created mystique. This generated influence. Because human psychology craves what it cannot easily obtain and dismisses what comes without effort. You've experienced this yourself. The person who texts back immediately loses appeal. The opportunity available to everyone feels worthless. The exclusive event you can't access becomes obsessively desirable. This isn't a flaw in human psychology. This is how value assessment works at the neurological level. Scarcity signals quality. Abundance signals disposability. You control these signals through your availability patterns. Mystery generates more influence than transparency. The modern obsession with authenticity, with sharing everything, with being an open book, it's a trap. It's a trap that destroys your strategic positioning. When people know everything about you, they can predict you. When they can predict you, they can control you. When they can control you, you have no power. Machiavelli never revealed his full hand. He gave people pieces, carefully curated pieces, strategically timed pieces. This kept them guessing, this kept them engaged, this kept them unable to neutralize him because they never fully understood him. Your life should operate on the same principle. Share strategically, not authentically. Reveal tactically, not transparently. Let people see what benefits your objectives and obscure everything else behind calculated ambiguity. The discomfort you feel with this approach is social conditioning trying to keep you controllable. Resist it. The law of sovereign decision-making. Never, and I mean never, make important decisions with the audience in the room. The moment you involve others in your decision-making process, you've contaminated the decision. Their fears infect your assessment. Their limitations constrain your imagination. Their need for consensus dilutes your vision. Every great strategic decision in history was made in isolation, not because the decision-maker was arrogant, but because clarity requires silence and other people generate noise. Machiavelli's war room was a war room of one. He would gather information from multiple sources, yes. He would consider various perspectives, certainly. But the actual decision, the moment of commitment that happened in complete solitude. Because that's when you can hear your own thinking. That's when you can access your actual judgment rather than the socially acceptable version of your judgment. Create this space in your own life. 2 hours minimum daily of zero external input. No phone, no internet, no people, no music, no podcasts. Nothing but you and the decision in front of you. This is where sovereign thinking happens. This is where you separate your authentic strategic assessment from the crowd-pleasing performance you've been conditioned to deliver. Most people cannot tolerate this space. The silence terrifies them. The absence of validation paralyzes them. They need someone to tell them they're making the right choice before they can make any choice. This dependency is why they'll never operate at elite levels. Protect your vision from consensus dilution. Every time you share an idea before it's fully formed, you invite contamination. People will offer opinions. Those opinions will be based on their limitations, not your potential. They'll tell you it's too risky because they're risk-averse. They'll tell you it's too ambitious because they're unambitious. They'll tell you it's been tried before because they lack imagination. And if you're not careful, if you're not fortified, their limitations will become your limitations. Their ceiling will become your ceiling. This is how consensus murders excellence. By the time an idea has been workshopped through a group, it's been sanded down to the lowest common denominator. All the edges that made it interesting have been removed. All the ambition that made it powerful has been moderated. What remains is safe, acceptable, and utterly mediocre. Guard your vision like you guard your life, because it is your life. The vision you're building in isolation is the future you'll inhabit. Contaminate it with consensus and you'll build a future designed by committee. And committee-designed futures are always disappointing. The law of comfortable solitude. This is the final evolution. Most people experience loneliness as suffering. You need to experience isolation as productivity. This requires deliberate reconditioning. Your nervous system has been trained since birth to interpret aloneness as danger. Tribal humans who got separated from the group died. Your amygdala still carries that programming. Every time you're alone, it sends distress signals. Social media addiction, constant texting, background television, these are all attempts to silence those distress signals, but silencing them doesn't resolve them. You need to reprogram them. 2 hours daily of zero external input. No exceptions. During this time, your only job is to be with yourself. Observe your thoughts, plan your strategies, review your progress, make your decisions. Initially, this will be excruciating. Your mind will scream for stimulation. Your body will generate anxiety. Push through. After 30 days, the acute discomfort fades. After 90 days, you'll prefer this state to social interaction. After 6 months, you'll have built psychological fortification that makes you functionally immune to social FOMO. You'll watch others scrambling for validation and feel nothing but pity, because you'll have found something they'll never find: internal authority. The ability to validate your own choices, the capacity to trust your own judgment, the strength to walk your own path regardless of who's watching or who approves. Your aloneness is the price of admission to excellence, not a bug, not a problem to solve. The price: excellence exists in the statistical extremes. By definition, most people don't achieve it. If you're doing what most people do, you'll get what most people get. If you want exceptional results, you need exceptional inputs. And exceptional inputs require exceptional isolation. The elite are always outnumbered. Always. In every field, in every era, in every domain. The masses cluster around mediocrity because mediocrity is comfortable, accessible, and socially validated. Excellence is uncomfortable, demanding, and socially punished until it becomes undeniable. You're in the punishment phase right now. That's why you're alone. That's why people don't understand you. That's why your ambitions seem crazy to everyone around you. You're building something they can't see yet, and they punish what they can't understand. Let them. Their punishment is temporary. Your results will be permanent. Machiavelli's closing truth echoes through 5 centuries. The lion walks alone while the sheep travel in herds. You have a choice. Right now. This moment. Embrace the isolation and continue building toward excellence, or return to the herd and accept mediocrity. There is no third option. The comfortable middle ground doesn't exist. You're either willing to pay the price or you're not. And the price is this: you walk alone.